Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny and I'm here today to go through the BookTube Prize nonfiction long list for 2023. Similarly to how I went through the fiction long list, I'm going to talk you through each group, which books I voted for, which books I didn't and had no interest in reading, etc. And then I'm going to go through each group and pick one book from each group that I think will go through to round 2. All right, so the numbers in nonfiction in terms of what I voted for from the very long list of options that went through is a little bit better than mine fiction. I voted 13 yeses, so 13 of the books that I voted for went through. 4 of the books that I said yes that I would read also went through. So I had more books on here that I wanted to read than that actually made the list. So I wanted to include those in here as well so I could speak to that. 19 of the books I said maybe, and 11 I said no. And the reasons for no in a lot of the categories will be pretty obvious. The nonfiction group A, Sandy Hook was a no for me. This was mostly because of subject matter. Reading about a shooting in a school is just, it's a bit too much for me. And A Heart That Works by Rob Delaney, I felt similar, like I'm just not sometimes emotionally able to handle these really heavy books, so it just wasn't something that felt like I wanted to try it. Come Back in September by Daryl Pickney was a maybe for me. Life Between the Tides was a maybe. The Song of the Cell, I said no. I'm not a huge science reader. When books get too sciencey for me, my eyes glaze over and I just don't pay much attention. So I just didn't think that one was going to be something that I was into. And then Strangers to Ourselves was a maybe for me. So nonfiction group A, I think, is the only group where I didn't vote for something in it. So it's kind of my least successful group. Nonfiction group B, Index, A History of the, I said it was a maybe for me. Same with Sentient, is that what it's called? Sentient by Jackie Higgins. I did vote for Magnificent Rebels. I thought this sounded really interesting. This is the kind of historical biography that I'm really into, with kind of this, looking at poets, looking at people who, were going against the norm of the day. I always found that really interesting. I'm Glad My Mom Died, Jeanette McCurdy. I mean, this is a huge book. It's been talked about all over. People who aren't even big readers have been talking about this book. I didn't think it needed my vote, hence it was a maybe for me. I mean, I'm not against reading it. I just wasn't super into the idea of voting for it. I just thought, I knew it was going to get through basically without my vote, so I didn't bother. The Facemaker was a no for me. This is because, now this is a time period that I'm actually really interested in. I think this is a World War I, post-World War I, talking about plastic surgery or something like that, and like repairing damaged soldiers. And this is mostly because, just along with science, I'm also quite squeamish, and I find reading about medical procedures to be not always very pleasant for me. It can turn my stomach basically, and so I just was like not interested in reading that at all. We Don't Know Ourselves, I was a maybe. I am very interested in Ireland. I have Irish ancestry, so I definitely think this is worth reading. I just didn't think it was compelling enough at the time to give it a vote. In nonfiction group C, this is one of my most successful categories because it has all books that I was interested in reading to some degree. So How to Stand Up to a Dictator was a resounding yes. It sounded absolutely fascinating to me, by Maria Ressa. Free as well. I love, unlike a lot of people, a lot of the nonfiction readers who read in the BookTube Prize, I am a fan of memoir. So memoir does not bother me at all. I want to read these stories, these personal stories that also share history at the same time. So Free by Leah Yupi was very interesting to me, or Yupai. Secret City, also super interesting to me because I'm interested in LGBTQ history. My reason for not voting for this was a maybe, is because of the size of this book. 826 pages. Obviously, a lot of that could be notes. But when I'm thinking about voting for books for the BookTube Prize, especially in nonfiction, I'm not interested in reading something that is going to be like 3 books in one. And I have to read it within 2 months and there's a deadline. Like, that is anxiety inducing to me, so I didn't vote for that one. My Fourth Time We Drowned, I did vote for that one. And I thought that Bodywork also sounded interesting. And then you'll see a check mark without a circle on a few of these. This is Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri. I have read Jhumpa Lahiri's book that she wrote about learning Italian, and the title right now is escaping me, but I enjoyed that book quite a bit. And so I know Jhumpa Lahiri's writing, and I figured that I would enjoy it. But when I was going through and I had to pick who I was going to vote for, and you can only vote for 20, I decided that this book had a high chance of getting through without my vote. So I didn't vote for it, and there you go, it got through. So that worked out well. So yeah, if I could have handpicked a category that I would be reading, it probably would have been nonfiction group C. Okay. Nonfiction group D. This was a lot of maybes. The Story of Russia was a maybe for me. I do enjoy learning about Russia. I have read Ruska by his last name is Rutherford, and I can't remember his first name, which is like an epic historical fiction novel set in Russia. So there are certain periods and parts of Russia that I find really fascinating to learn about. I did vote for Paradise Falls by Keith O'Brien and River of the Gods. Excuse me. River of the Gods was actually already on my TBR, and this is going along with my like a lot of books about rivers that I read in 2022. And so this one, just was an easy vote because I knew that I already wanted to read it. And then Lost and Found, Fuddy Fuddy Boom Boom, and Half American were all maybes for me. Just sounded interesting enough that I would be willing to read them, but not, something that I was like, oh yes, I definitely want to vote for this one. Nonfiction group E has another huge book, G-Man, which is all about J. Edgar Hoover. And I was not interested in that one at all. 864 pages. I don't feel like this man's life is anything that I want to delve into. So that was definitely no. Super Infinite, also a no. And then the Trayvon Generation by Elizabeth Alexander. Again, I had a very strong feeling this book would get through without my vote, and it was a book that I'm interested in reading. So I didn't vote for it, and I was lucky because it got through. Eating to Extinction and Thin Places both sounded really interesting to me, and I was really happy to see that they got on the list, and I voted for them. Nonfiction group F. Here we have a kind of a mixed bag. Oh, actually, I didn't vote for any of the books in this section, in this category group. I did have Under the Skin as a check mark, but again, I was like, it didn't make my final 20, but I was really happy to see that it got onto the list. And Breathless, I mean, I'm just at this stage of where we are in / post pandemic, I just am not into the idea of reading about it. It's a bit still too close to me, and I don't even know if I ever want to read about it having lived through it. I guess I'm just not that compelled by it. Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. There's so much popularity around Greek myth, and Greek myth is something that I get a bit saturated by, and I do feel compelled to read some of the fiction around it, Madeline Miller's work, etc. But I am curious about this book. There's a curiosity there, especially from the female perspectives in Greek myth. I just feel like it's very prevalent for the last like 5 years or so that there's Greek myth retelling all the time. And whenever there's a novel I'm reading that has, or even nonfiction that I'm reading that refers to Greek myth as like this touchstone for whatever themes they're going through, I tend to have a visceral reaction of not enjoying that. So I'm curious to see if I do get a nonfiction category and I do have to read this book, if I enjoy it or not. In nonfiction group G, we have two that I didn't want to read at all, Dinners with Ruth and the Buster Keaton biography. Just, not interested in that. I did hear a review about Dinners with Ruth about how it wasn't really about Ruth Ginsburg as much, and I don't know, it just didn't sound appealing to me. Solito, similarly to, I decided not to vote for that one when I had to cut down out of my 20, and so I was happy to see that one got through. Manifesto by Bernardine Evaristo. I love the idea of reading a manifesto of hers. I think she's a fascinating writer. I've only read Girl, Woman, Other of her work, and I'm curious to see what her nonfiction writing is like, so I definitely voted for that one. And then both In Love and Stay True memoirs that I was interested in enough to say, yeah, maybe I'd want to read them, but they didn't interest me enough to give them my vote. Okay, so nonfiction group H. This was also a really strong group for me. I had 4 votes yes and 1 maybe and only 1 no. So all of these appealed to me. Also a poet, The Escape Artist, his name is George Floyd, Read Dangerously. I did hear a review about this, that if you hadn't read some of the materials that Azar Nafisi was referring to, that maybe this wouldn't be as enjoyable, the essays. I can see that as a valid point. I would have to read it to see if that bothered me. And then the Keats biography. I am really interested in learning about the lives of artists. Almost all. I know I wasn't in the Buster Keaton one, but the Keats one did appeal to me. So this group was pretty strong. And Blood and Ruins, why am I not interested in that one, is, it's over 900 pages. I mean, these are not realistic books to read in these types of competitions for me. If we had a year to read this book, I would maybe consider it, but I could just see my eyes glazing over if I had to read something like this. So yeah, was not interested at all. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through which book in each group I think we'll be going through to round 2. And we will start with nonfiction group H. So these are predictions, and I'm basing it on, what I feel is kind of in the collective mindset at this time. I think His Name is George Floyd is going to go through. This is a book, I mean, obviously George Floyd's death was, incomparable. It was monumental in terms of its impact not only in the United States, but across the world. And I just think that, if this book does it well, that it will be one that, everyone wants to explore. In nonfiction, Group G, I've picked Dinners with Ruth by Nita Totenberg. I mean, again, I already said this is not a book I voted for, and it's not a book that I want to read, but I think that, RGB is a huge, she's a huge person in the American mindset, and her death was impactful as well in so many ways. So I just think that this book will definitely make it through to the next round. From nonfiction, Group F, I've picked Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. I just think that there's a lot of people that love reading about Greek myth, that it's going to be so compelling to those people in the group that they'll definitely put this one through. In Group E, I found this category a little bit difficult to pick, but I decided to pick Eating to Extinction, The World's Rarest Foods and Why We Need to Save Them by Dan Saladino, because I think every year there are some science-based, like climate-based books that make it through the first round, and they don't necessarily make it to the end, but they make it through the first round. And so I feel like this one might be the one this year that captures people's imagination. And in Group D, I kind of went out on a limb as well and picked Paradise Falls by Keith O'Brien for the same reason. I think that, I've heard that this book is well written and is very compelling, and I feel like that will propel it forward over some of these other ones, depending on, how... This category was tough. I'm not sure, but I decided Paradise Falls was my guess, so that's going to be my prediction. In Group C, I went totally with my heart and put How to Stand Up to a Dictator by Maria Ressa, The Fight for Our Future. I think that anyone I've heard of who's read this has liked it, I believe. And I just think it's maybe got the magic of this kind of memoir biography style of writing that will put it over these other books that might be a bit more personal, sentimental. Obviously not Secret City, but the other ones. In Group B, I picked I'm Glad My Mom Died. I think that this book has so much momentum, and that momentum is just going to carry through to the BookTube Prize. I don't see why in any way that would not resonate with the readers here the same way it's been resonating with readers everywhere. And for nonfiction Group A, I picked Sandy Hook, An American Tragedy, and The Battle for Truth. Again, not a book that I want to read, but this is a huge, gun control and these mass shootings are so, ingrained in American culture. They're so tied to every part of, the kind of human experience of tragedy, and that I just think that this book is a shoo-in to get through because it'll be so compelling to so many people. All right, so those are my predictions and my impressions of the BookTube Prize nonfiction long list for 2023. I hope if you are in the midst of reading this book that you're reading some great stuff and you are you know, happy with your category and getting through round 1. And since I'm not reading in this round, I'm not sure if I will, I think I might make a video at the end of March and see if my predictions made it through or not. That might be a fun way to revisit. And I do perceive that I will most likely be reading in round 2, so then I'll have some videos all about what I'm reading as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another video.